All right, YouTube, time for occult literature video number 5 on the Clavicles of Solomon. Now, there are multiple versions of this text, and I at first didn't realize this. Many others get them confused. There are about a half a dozen different variants of this same general cycle of work compiled over time from multiple sources. I took the Sloan work, one specific manuscript, I re-edited it, I removed the archaic language, I redid or refined some of the illustrations and reformatted the whole thing. I didn't want to do what others appear to have done, drag a bunch of other material in from other manuscripts that may not actually, academically speaking, be part of the same exact tradition. They may be based on one another. I took the one that I could find that was the oldest, the most authentic, as I can name it, and I simply re-edited it. So this is the Key of Knowledge edition of the Clavicles of Solomon. As always, link in the description to this work on Amazon, link in the description to my book blog, where you can find other works, alchemy, grimoires, psychedelia, various things, herb lore. This particular work is probably the most notorious of all. I've seen many, many different editions of it over time. Some of them are quite old, some of them are rather new. Some of them are better than others. All of them are at least interesting, though. And essentially what you've got here is the typical blood of a bat and head of a cat here poured in the cauldron and cause this result sort of grimoire. This is more like the Little Albert. This is more of the classic, or the Grimorium Verum, more of the classic black magic book as we would understand it, as being sort of a folklore, yes, folkish mysticism, as we could call it, but at the same time having a diabolical side, not really being concerned with good or evil, being willing to curse somebody out of your way, causing harm, certainly to the animals sometimes involved in the ritualism, in this work especially bats. But if you look at the table of contents, it's fairly standard. It's fairly similar to many of the other grimoires, especially French cycle works, over time. Now, it claims to be from Solomon. Is it actually from the time of Solomon? No, it's clearly of strictly European manufacture from the Renaissance. That doesn't, however, denigrate from it. And one thing I will point out here, and I'll probably have to point it out on future videos in the same series, just because a work has been misattributed to some prior figure doesn't denigrate from its usefulness. The fact that Hermes or Moses or Solomon or any of these other figures wasn't necessarily involved with the manufacture of any of the works ascribed to them doesn't mean the work is no good. It simply means the person at the time didn't have the clout in their community to circulate it widely enough without saying, hey, this is some long-lost book that I dug out of an attic and it says it's from King Solomon or something like that. And so people took it more seriously because they were superstitious. Well, saying, well, Joe Schmo wrote this grimoire, it just doesn't sound quite as good. We see this even happening today with stuff like the Red Book of Appin. Of course, did Vlad have anything to do with it? No, Vlad the Impaler wasn't involved in the manufacture of this demonology manuscript, but people claim that it was anyway. The Clavicles of Solomon are high magic. They are high ritual magic in the strictest sense. That is, most of the core of the actual grimoire is simply about manufacturing the materials you need and enchanting them, consecrating them, crafting them in the first place, just to practice the rituals therein. And this is the case with many grimoires from the era. That is, 3/4 or 80% of the material involves you make the robe at sundown on a full moon out of thistles or something like that. And here's how you make the pen and the dagger and the pentacle. And here are these talismans that you'll need for different days of the week in order to raise the dead or something. The actual rituals of note that most people would be actually interested in performing for some sort of paranormal effect are completely secondary to the extreme legalism of actually setting up to do those rituals. And this is certainly the case with the Clavicles. I can't think of a single other text that's quite as legalistic in how it continuously chides the reader into trying to make sure to do everything spot on, absolutely perfect. Right day of the week, right hour of the day, right month of the year, right zodiac sign, right materials, right frame of mind. You had to remain chaste for a certain period. You had to fast for so many days. and it would take you a long time to actually compile the materials necessary to practice. That being said, if you look at the actual ritualism itself, it is strictly high magic. We're not talking about, oh, I raised a demon with a simple invocation. This is much, much more complicated. Now, as for whether I recommend it, of course, this is probably the most notorious work within all of the occult. So it doesn't even require my recommendation at that point. It's simply a notable work within this sort of cycle of occultism, extremely notable, extremely widespread, and this is shown by the fact that, of course, there are about a half a dozen different modern editions alone of this same work, going back again to multiple manuscripts. You've got two really good versions, and then you've got dozens of shorter fragments and manuscripts and so forth. Sometimes they get compiled together. I chose to remain pure on this one. But if you want perhaps the purest look at the most original manuscript, that is what my edition can offer you. Again, link in the description to the Amazon page for the book, link in the description to my books blog where you can acquire this and much more. That's about all. Peace out.